Do any of you guys have friends who are nuts? I'm talking people who believe in ghosts or who think that they can read minds or see into the future. People who are certifiably crazy. Well, I do. I have this friend named Patrick, and Patrick recently moved into this old farmhouse, and he thinks it's haunted. It's this beautiful old white farmhouse out in the country with positively lovely gardens, but he thinks it's haunted. And every few weeks, he'll call me up in the middle of the night. Yeah, hello? I hear someone screaming in the basement again, and I'm running down there with my shotgun, and if I don't call you back in 5 minutes, you call the police, you hear me? Yeah, okay, Patrick. It's all ridiculously dramatic. You know, it's the kind of complaint that almost smells like a boast, like the psychic equivalent of saying, oh, Lordy, I wish my diamond ring wasn't so very heavy. Or, oh, shucks, I wish I could wear this bikini without everyone lusting after me. Nonsense. Well, Patrick, he calls this ghost the lady. And he's always complaining that he doesn't get any sleep at night because the lady was keeping him up all night, rummaging around in the kitchen and knocking pictures off the walls, turning the water faucet on and off. Well, the sad thing is that Patrick, he used to be just like me before he moved into this farmhouse. He used to be normal, stable, even reasonable. Now I just think he's full of shit. Well, I figured that I was going to prove to Patrick once and for all that he was being completely moronic. So I offered to watch his farmhouse for him while he went on vacation for 2 weeks. And I figured while he was gone, I would throw a little party, see if the lady showed up. Well, unfortunately for me, Patrick is not my only deluded friend. I also have this friend named Brenda. Brenda thinks that she can see into the future. Once, at a dinner party, I was telling one of my best stories, and she completely interrupted it, right in the middle. Her eyes got all wide, and she had this terrified look on her face, and she gasped. Of course, I stopped my story. What's wrong, Brenda? What's wrong? Oh, nothing. Just keep telling your story. It's a good story. Just keep telling your story. Me, being the nice person I am, persisted. No, Brenda, you look really worried. What's wrong? Please, just tell us. And I kid you not, with tears in her eyes, she grabbed my hands, looked me right in the face, and said, please, just promise me that you will stay away from automobiles for the next 6 years. What the hell? So that's Brenda and Patrick. They're crazy, but they're friends. Always craving attention. Brenda, what with her, oh, it's terrible being able to see into the future. Patrick with his, oh, the lady kept me up all night last night, screaming and running around, blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, I decided to throw this party, and I figured that I would invite Brenda and a few of her psychic friends, and then I would invite a few of my normal friends, you know, people who aren't plagued by extrasensory gifts. I figured we'd crack open a few bottles of wine and just kind of stand around and laugh in the corner as we watched the mediums flit around and channel spirits or whatever it is they do in their free time. Well, the day of the party came and about a dozen people showed up. Just as I figured, Brenda brought one of her psychic friends, Molly. The second she stepped through the door, Molly was swooning from all of the ghost energy that she said she felt there. In fact, every few steps she'd start to sway and have to grab onto a chair in order not to fall over. And to be fair, most of my friends were swaying, but for the sane ones, that was just because of the red wine. Well, anyway, almost immediately, Molly latched onto my friend Ina. Now, Ina's German, she's very sensible. Her idea of showing more emotion is to light up another cigarette. So she's usually pretty calm and collected. But then Molly started talking to her. Oh, darling, there's a woman standing next to you. Do you see her? Do you see her? There's a woman standing next to you, and I think her name's Margaret. And, well, darling, she's showering you with blue flowers. I think they're blue blue forget-me-nots. And just as she said this, Ina dropped her cigarette and started sobbing. Well, it turns out that Ina's mother had died of cancer a few years prior, and her mother's name had been Margaret, and her mother's favorite flower had been blue forget-me-nots. And every few weeks, Ina would go and put blue forget-me-nots on her grave. I'd been friends with Ina for 10 years, and I didn't even know this. How in the world Molly knew this, I have no idea. Well, I felt terrible, so I poured Ina another glass of red wine and lit her another cigarette and was trying to console her. But then, what do you know, Molly started in on me. And you, well, there's a man standing next to you, and if I'm not mistaken, darling, I think it's your murdered father. Oh, please. Let me tell you about my father. When my father was 4 years old, he hid under the table and watched his father murder his mother, and then stalk around the house looking for him until he finally gave up and shot himself in the head. Well, my siblings say that for the rest of my father's life, he was marrying woman after woman after woman, searching for his mother. That's all my father ever did, was get divorced and remarried. In fact, he'd been divorced from my mother for 15 years when he read a personals advertisement in the newspaper and started dating the author of the advertisement, not knowing that she had a violent ex-husband. Well, they went back to her house after their third date, and her violent ex-husband was waiting for them in the kitchen with a shotgun, and he shot them both dead. That was in April of 1999. The whole grisly ordeal had been in the papers, and it had gone to trial. The murderer had been found guilty, sentenced to death. Molly didn't need any extrasensory gifts to know about this. All she needed to know how to do was read a fucking newspaper. So, to be quite honest, I wasn't impressed at all. Well, I just continued to drink my wine and shrugged it off. Of course, Molly continued. And your father, well, I think that he feels bad for something that he did to you when you were younger. He knows that it seemed mean, but it was the only way he knew how to teach you a lesson. And I think he's holding something. It might be a stick. No, wait. He's holding an axe. I think that you're about to be dismembered. Of course, at this, everyone else at the party started to panic and freak out. Not me. This was way too good. I just poured myself another drink and just looked Molly right in the face. Oh, please, this is really quite fascinating. Please do continue, Molly. So she did. And your father, he wants me to tell you that he's much happier now than he ever was when he was alive. Come on. Isn't this how it always is? Just give a little scrap of comfort for the bereaved. Molly was just the same as many before her throughout history who'd been preying on grieving people. Figured, at best, she was a misguided, deluded fool. And at worst, she was a manipulative monster. Well, the fact of the matter is, there was something that I didn't tell Molly or anyone at the party that night. You see, when I was 4 years old, I got a metal washer stuck on my finger. And I was too nervous to tell my parents about it, scared they would yell at me. So I just let it sit there until my finger was all purple and swollen. And my father, well, he finally saw it. And he told me that he was going to have to chop my finger off. He said if we didn't, I was going to get gangrene and my finger was going to rot and fall off. So he spent the whole afternoon sharpening his axe and lecturing me about being able to take responsibility for my actions. And you know, to be quite honest, by the time I knelt down at the chopping block, I was almost grateful for my father. Yeah, it was gonna hurt to get my finger chopped off, but it was certainly gonna be better than getting gangrene and having my finger rot and fall off. Well, my father lifted up his axe, and I closed my eyes really tightly, and on the count of 3, he swung. Well, of course he missed. Then he led me back into the house and got some soap and water and got the washer off my finger. I'd almost forgotten that story. I've never told anyone that story. I figured that everyone would think my father was being excessively cruel. But I knew my father, and he wasn't trying to be mean or to scare me. That was just the best way he knew how to teach me a lesson. Well, that story has been my secret for 24 years. And there was Molly at that party telling that story to me and telling that story to all of my drunken friends. Well, I didn't tell Molly that story. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction. Didn't want her leaving the party thinking she actually had some psychic talent after all. Well, anyway, pretty soon after that, one of my friends became ill from the massive alcohol consumption of the evening, and probably from all the ridiculous stories that were being told as well. So the party ended pretty quickly after that. You know, honestly, it's a pretty disappointing party. Patrick's ghost never showed up, and we all just had to sit around and listen to Molly's goofy premonitions and visions. You know, it must have been a trick. How Molly knew about my father. I can't explain it, but then again, there's lots of things that I can't explain. The night my father died, my mom had a dream with him in it where he came to the front door and he'd been shot in the side, and he was trying to hide from the person who shot him. And my mom was still so mad at him over the divorce that she just slammed the door in his face. And that same night, one of my sisters had a dream with my father in it, where they were walking through our hometown, and she was telling my father that she was sorry that they weren't in contact anymore, and he was consoling her and telling her that it was all right and he didn't mind. That night my father died, I didn't have a dream with him in it. Nobody came to me in my sleep to say goodbye. You know, honestly, I would love to be able to believe in an invisible spirit world like Brenda or Patrick or Molly. It would undermine all the suffering and pressure of the physical world. But then again, it would negate the value of the money I have in the bank, and of my home, and my decent job, and my normal friends. It would make all of our blessings and all of our problems seem like nothing more than plots out of fictional books and movies. I think that ultimately, an invisible spirit world would just render the real world some sort of illusion. So to me, this invisible spirit world that my friends believe in, it'll always just kind of seem like necrophilia. I don't have any experience with it, so I can't take it seriously. To me, it'll always just seem like some sort of weird, super inappropriate joke. There are no ghosts. But if there are, my father should damn well tell me himself.